Thanks, Stephen. You guys can hear me properly?
Yeah, we can hear you great.
All right, then I'm just setting up. All righty. Good afternoon, all. Maybe I'll get it out of I'll keep that there. My name is Tom van Loef. I'm one of the co-founders of Geronimo, and today I would like to present to you the development of our company, how we've moved in 4 years from a very heavy engineering savvy startup to a company which has decided to focus on 2 very specific problems and to try to make the best solution for those specific problems and build a durable company on top of that. The way I want to do that is by first giving a very short introduction about our company, and then really going along the development of our products and the lessons we've learned there. And I hope that those lessons might also be useful for you or for the Horizon projects. We started in 2019 by myself and 2 co-founders with a background in computer science and aerospace engineering, really in a very broad field of applying machine learning, AI analysis on remote sensing data. At the time, it seemed that that was in high demand. So since we were trained with those skills, it seemed sensible to start a company. And what you do then most of the time is you put some remote sensing data, you do some AI analysis, and out rolls a map. A map can be of a lot of different things. It can be a map of deforestation, it can be a map of pollution, it can be a map of changing cities. You can come up with a lot of different cases. And we were kind of lucky to be able to make the transition from doing all these different projects to focusing more and more on 2 specific problems and developing a product there. And actually R&D funding was very important for us to make that transition. So I think that is the connection with the Horizon projects, even though we actually did not do any of those projects ourselves. Currently, we're serving roughly 40 clients, and we've grown a little in team size, but that's not too exciting, maybe. Before I go into the rest of the story, I want to throw out this disclaimer, because I might give the impression that we really are very critical about making the decision whether a subsidy R&D is relevant for you. It really can be, but we really judge those decisions quite critical. But if you look at our development, it was actually very important. So now, actually, this is the first year that we are fully driven on our own product sales, but it took us roughly 3 years to get there. And during this 3-year process, we really used a lot of R&D subsidies, which we were lucky enough to be very related to the challenges we tried to solve. So that's a disclaimer about the importance of projects like these. What I'd like to do then is briefly discuss the 2 products to see the common denominators or the common mistakes we've made, and to present those as lessons learned, and maybe also to shed a light on how we see the Horizon projects after having developed some products already. So I'll start with CropMap. And CropMap tries to solve a problem which is maintained by governments in the European Union, namely the problem that the government has a lot of agricultural land and it leases this land to farmers, so farmers can use it, but this process is done via bidding. So if you want a piece of land, you can say to the government, well, I'll give you 100K if I can use the land for 6 years. And then your neighbor says, well, I'll take it for 200K. So there's this bidding to decide who gets the land. And a very important piece for that process is that there is such a thing which is called a bouwplan, which sort of restricts what you can do with the soil. For example, it says that you cannot grow tulips 6 years in a row. It might be very profitable to grow tulips every year, but after 6 years, the soil will be completely depleted, at which point your contract ends. And so the government gets back this land, which is now worthless because the soil has pretty much died. And the problem was that there was very limited monitoring to see whether these rules, whether these crop rotations really were complied with. So the solution is actually very simple. And I'm pretty sure we're not the only one who can come up with this solution. To solve this problem, what you need is an objective and frequently generated crop map of the entire Netherlands or of any EU member state. Because once you have that map and you can generate it today and a week from now and a year from now, you can pretty much put those maps on top of each other, and the intersection is your crop rotation. And then that crop rotation is something you can check versus whether that is complied with the bouwplan. And to look at how you do such a thing, this is actually something which might not be that exciting anymore. Maybe when we developed it, it was still a little bit more on the front of the technology. We use two satellite sources, Sentinel-1 and 2. We take those time series, and the cool thing about those time series, for example, the NDVI curve, is that there's some characteristics in that series, for example, that you can determine the crop which is being grown. Now there are a lot of more events in there. For example, the moment of seeding the crop, of mowing. There's a lot of events in the time series. We only detect the crop type. Now, once we've trained such a model, it's actually quite simple to calculate new crop maps and say what's being grown where. So we made it actually pretty easy. At the beginning of 2021, this was pretty much finished. And at that point, we were like, well, ministry, here you have the map. We'll give you a new map in half a year. And now you can make these crop rotations and you can solve the problem yourself. What we really noticed there actually is that once we have this map, this information piece, the government really did not know what to do with it. So we as engineers, we thought, well, if you have this map, now you can solve the problem yourself. However, the client really needs to be brought all the way to the finish line until the value is completely unlocked. So we did end up actually developing an application after the information, which now results in that the government can log in, they can see a fancy user interface, and they can maintain their process. So this was a very important lesson for us, that as engineers, we might think, well, if you have this map, you're done. But for the client, there's still a lot of work to be done after you have that map. After you have the information, it still needs somehow to translate to the value. And I think that's at least as important of a step as the Earth observation AI analysis, which goes up front. Now, maybe because of the time, I'll skip this part. Maybe also the second product is a little bit less relevant. What we do there is we mostly monitor changes in cities. And also there, the lesson was that we cannot stop by giving a rough map to the client. We really need to unlock the value in that map by attaching it to the process of the client. So actually what we've encountered twice, and also in all the consultancy projects we've done, is that the client has a problem, which is great, because otherwise as engineers, what are we going to do? We need a problem to solve. So we think about this problem and we have an idea, okay, well, if we have this piece of information, then it's solved. And so we give that piece of information back to the client, but he still has no value. Now he has a piece of information, but it's not connected in any way to the end result. And so we always left this gap open until the value is unlocked, and we left it up to the client to solve that. Well, I think what we've encountered is that that second part is maybe even more important than the first. I find it challenging because my colleagues are all very diehard engineers. So the second part is a lot less exciting to do, but that may be the part where you make the difference, which I'm calling here the unsexy engineering, which is required to unlock the value. And more, I have the feeling that with remote sensing and AI analysis becoming sort of a commodity, it might actually be that second part where you can make the difference, where you can have your competitive advantage compared to all the other companies, which also somehow manage to make a map of agriculture, for example. So maybe, yeah, diving into the last 2 slides. What were the lessons that we've learned over the past few years? Firstly, that infinite insights can be generated. I see a lot of companies and everyone is selling valuable insights, which I'm starting to get a little bit annoyed about, because that would mean that the value still has to be unlocked by the client himself, while we now think that actually the unlocking of the client of the value really is your responsibility as the supplier. Then the second question is, you have all these insights, how close can you attach the insight to money? How clearly can you make the business case? And in that field, we've encountered that it might actually be worth more to focus on specific cases than doing a lot of different projects at the same time. Now, that is not, maybe we're wrong in that, but we've made the clear decision to focus on specifics so that we can become very good there rather than doing a lot of things. So translating to the considerations that we have to participate in a Horizon project, we have 3 questions. The first 2 are posted here. Do we have the competitive edge to deliver the best insights? Remote sensing data is freely available. There's a lot of analysis freely available. Why would we be the company that is best suitable to do this from a technical standpoint? Then after that comes the question, are we the right party concerning the domain? Are we capable to translating that insight to value for the customer? And if those 2 are yes, then there still is a very important third question for us, and that is whether our own goals and strategy align with the project. Because if the answer is no, the perseverance to keep going until the solution works will end once the subsidy runs out. So I think that question is also very important to decide whether you should really invest your time in these projects. Now, we as Geronimo, we were lucky enough to encounter 2 subsidies which really got a yes on all these questions. So we did those, but right now we're very limited on deciding what subsidy we are gonna move into, because it also deviates from the feedback that you get by just working with the client, selling to the client, and you'll get a no if you're making the wrong developments. So that's some kind of considerations we have. I think I'm already past my time, so I'll leave it at that for now.
Tom, thank you so much. That was an excellent presentation. I'm going to open it up for questions and answers. Yes, if you have any questions for Tom and his presentation, go ahead and put it in the chat, or maybe raise your hand and you can speak up and have your question. I'll kick us off. So Tom, I found your presentation very interesting because I work both in space and in AI. And one of the things I thought was particularly interesting is how you went from some just basic information that you provided to multiple products. And you've now got 2 products that seem to be winners in the market. Where do you see Geronimo going over the course of the next year or 2? Do you see yourself developing more products or working primarily with those products in those spaces?
The last. So I really have to prevent myself from having a full-on tunnel vision, because that's of course not good, but I do feel that the difference is made once you specialize. So it's better to do 1 or 2 things and just be the best and get a durable market position, rather than doing all these kind of projects, which I see a lot of other companies doing. And I also think there's a lot of luck actually involved to find those products, but we're going to focus.
Excellent. Any other questions from the audience?
I have a comment actually. It happens to happen that Tom, you are the winner company of the same challenge that I apply with another startup. So I remember in 2019 when this challenge came out, and indeed I think where we excelled was focusing on the client client issue, meaning providing information, not really insights. So that's a big congratulations to you. I have a question about Horizon Europe. How do you see yourself in relation Horizon Europe grants? I mean, are you interested to participate, sitting in consortia, leading projects, or what is your position?
Yeah, so I won't say no, because it's also very important for us to keep an open view. But such the last 3 questions that I asked, we do really ask those questions. So if the project is not really, we already have goals for our company, regardless whether there is a Horizon project or not. We have a vision about what we want to do and our goals. And if that aligns with Horizon, then it's great. But if not, we're not going to deviate from our own path just to be able to do such a project. So I have not dove into enough depth to actually answer those questions. Yeah. So I have to see.
Yeah, you'll see probably a couple of calls that might ring you a bell, because they are quite close to, because what you spoke before in the introduction was the common agricultural policy, which drives the subvention that you spoke about, and then you work for the subvention for the Dutch state. This subvention is being monitored and implemented with different means in different countries. So from this point of view, there's a huge market still to be tapped from this point of view, not only the Dutch case. Yeah, I mean, of course, what you're speaking about the products, but soil is also a really important aspect. So this can be also a way to bootstrap what Stephen mentioned, like bootstrap your research R&D with European money to create another product from this point of view. But again, this is a decision that you have to do, and yeah, success with what you're doing. Yeah.